He went from making $25,000 to making $100,000. If you were to describe the differences between those two performances in one sentence, how would you sum it up?
Believing that hard work beats talent any day. I wasn't the most talented, but I went out there, I saw these other guys throwing huge numbers. The only thing that popped in my head is I gotta work harder. If you wanna make $100,000 in the summer, you need to sacrifice a lot. Your body, your mind, anything and everything. And burn all the ships and go out there and do it.
What's up, you guys? Thanks for tuning in to the Purpose Driven Persuasion podcast, where if you're a highly ambitious person, you're going to learn how to go from being unfocused to unstoppable, and specifically by applying the tactics, strategies, and learning from the results of persuasion and influence demonstrated at a high level. What that means for you is by applying the things we talk about in this podcast of sales skills or persuasion and influence, you can become the most persuasive, influential, and impactful version of yourself and better serve the people around you that you love and care about the most. I'm your host, Hayden Schaap. For the last 10 years, I've obsessively tried to learn, apply, and teach these skills of persuasion and influence at the highest level and have seen incredible results in my own life and the people that we've worked with. And that's what we're talking about. Give us a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on all of the audio platforms as well. Make sure you follow for more. If you get some value out of this, I'd really appreciate if you shared it with somebody else as well, because I think a lot of people could benefit. Enjoy the episode, guys.
Dude, I saw your whole family at True Religion.
They just stopped inviting me to stuff because
sorry,
I usually just say no. I'm just kidding.
You just start crying. No, I literally saw your dad and McKay.
Bro, so the guy I just met with, do you guys know who Kurt Doucette is? Does that name ring a bell?
Oh, that sounds really familiar.
So he owns Comedy Sports. He owns a lot of businesses, but he's also a pretty famous actor. He's been in movies with like Mel Gibson and does a bunch of like funny commercials. Yeah, he's actually been in a lot of like the old school like church movies, like RM, and what else? Provo. What was that one? I don't even remember. But you know, like the old school like church comedy movies that were just like making fun, like Singles Ward.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
He's like always one of the main characters in those, but he's been done since then. Has done some big movies.
That's the guy you were just barely talking to.
Yeah, and his son wants his son to come work with us, and so I ran into him at the gym, and he and we came over. But they just went to True Religion as well, so they were probably there with my family too. I didn't even realize it.
Maybe.
Did you just go there?
Some other people. Yeah, that's why I was so late. I was just with some mission buddies.
They would have been there with you, like in the.
Yeah, no, they were literally like the table like next over. I just saw McKay. I was like,
hey.
And he's like,
dude, I heard True Religion's good.
It's kind of fire.
Yeah.
I got biscuits and gravy.
Dude, I can't eat any of that crap right now.
I thought you were talking about the jeans. Remember the True Religion jeans?
I know. That's what. This is my first time going there.
Is it a restaurant?
Yeah, and it's
it's like a breakfast food restaurant. It's only open till like noon, right?
Is it already started? Or what?
Oh yeah, we just do cold open here.
Right
Yeah.
True Religion.
So.
Are you talking about like the jeans or?
No. It's like a breakfast place.
What?
Yeah.
I've heard of the True Religion jeans.
Yeah,
Dude.
that's what I thought you were saying.
I used to own some True Religion jeans that I stole from a cousin.
They're super popular in high school. Everyone, if you had a True Religion jeans, you were cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't very cool, I guess.
Me neither.
Same.
But then eventually I got a pair that I stole from an uncle of mine.
Wait, actually?
Yeah.
Oh. Do they look good?
Yeah, they're nice.
Is this before or after the like core values like hit you hard?
Oh, that was a different time in my life. Dude.
Yeah. All right. So do we have a structure for this, or we just chat about stuff?
Not even a little bit.
Do we have like questions that like? We
Yeah,
can,
I
like,
sent the
talk
questions
about,
already
or?
to Johnny, but like we might ask them, we might not. But so basically, just to introduce everyone here, I guess we can start with a little structure. So we've got David Smith that we just did a pod with recently. We've got Jonathan Bisinwa, goes by Johnny. You go by anything else?
Nah, that's all I go by.
Do you ever
Johnny.
go by
Johnny?
Do you ever go by John?
Old Johnny.
No.
That's what I think is funny when people call you John. I'm like,
Tim calls
Johnny.
all Jonathans John.
John. Yeah.
The reason why people call
What's
me
funny
John,
though?
Like no one else is calling them that.
Dude,
What I
think,
Juan's John as well. I mean, like literally everyone.
dude,
It doesn't matter.
that's what one of my favorite
calls
parts
Hayden
for
John.
my mission is like when people would come up to us and be like, I don't believe in that John Smith. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
Me either.
Yeah, John
He's
Smith's
in.
got-
that was the Pocahontas guy, right? Yeah. Nah,
Yeah.
me neither. I don't like that guy very
I
much.
don't like colonizers.
I heard he was sketch.
Yeah. It's kind of cool though how he like almost took one for the team and like almost died because he was in love with Pocahontas. So
Yeah. I mean, the cartoon's kind of fire though, right?
Yeah. So, all right. Before you get off track, then Hyrum Smith here too. So the Smith brothers are the directors of sales over Las Vegas. ... TBD anywhere else, depending on how recruiting goes this year.
Yeah.
Yep. So
for sure, somewhere else.
Yeah. Let's break
eventually.
The news.
Let's
least. Break the news on the podcast where that place is going to be.
I learned a good lesson this last year to not overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
So overpromising just always leads to underdelivering.
We've just been telling all our reps that we're all going to North Dakota. That's been.
I've been telling them we're opening Houston.
Yeah, dude. I hear there's a lot of.
You've been telling Houston.
Alabama.
That means half of them think they're going to North Dakota. Half of them Houston.
I have a list. I have a list of like 100
really
markets.
Dude. It's gonna suck.
Because it matters.
That's right. You sent me the you're just like look
that?
up the biggest residential
metro populations in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so I have a list of 100 markets starting from the highest metro populations to the least. And yeah, it's good. It's nice. With the home values that we would like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or just going to Australia. It's funny because like
Australia, New Zealand is after that. Yeah.
It's funny because I was like actually talking to Eno about this during the summer. Of like the next places we could like possibly knock, and I was like, dude, Australia would be so sick, but like I feel like just building rapport while knocking in Australia would probably be way different than like building rapport like here in the
just
States.
because you're American,
like the lingos, just like small things, like to actually build a successful rapport in like a different country. So I was like,
I mean that could be true, although. I know someone that trained a lot of solar sales reps in Australia, and the basic idea was that everyone kind of responds or falls into rapport with you based on the same principles. Yeah. If they're a living, breathing human. Well, actually, it's specifically they speak English, because the tonal structures, the underlying message of the tonalities gives the same impression. That's only not true for like maybe a couple Asian cultures is all. But even then, dude, I was actually talking to this kid. I don't know why we're bringing this up off tangent already, but I was talking to this guy that is fluent in Chinese, and I was asking him about like the tonalities and what they mean. Yeah. So like, because you have to speak in a different tone, which literally gives words different meanings, right? And he's like, what's funny is that as I was going through your training, like you're talking about how the tonalities change the meaning of what you're saying, like the underlying message. And he's like, it's the same in Chinese. That's actually the whole tenet of the language. So I picked his brain on like what certain tones mean, and it was crazy how similar they were for like phrasing a declarative as a question. So like when you go up at the end in certain octaves, it literally is like assumptive. So you're saying like, right? That's you know me, right? My name is Hayden Schapp.
Oh my god!
But it was wild. I'm like, what? So even in like Chinese.
You need to learn Chinese.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's wild.
Which the basic idea of that is that we actually evolved to understand inflections of voice and tonalities to mean something. And it's very likely that it means the same thing for everyone, which is why it's so powerful.
Yeah, totally.
That's wild.
And I feel, David and I have sold in 3 different markets. I mean, really, I sold in Dallas for like a week.
San Diego, Dallas for a week.
Yeah,
Vegas.
And then Vegas and
Atlanta. 4 markets.
And completely different parts of the United States. And yeah, well, Texas is still different, I think, than like the deep California. South you could consider, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Texas totally different cultures, right? And we grew up in Connecticut too, which is a totally different ball game. I mean, and we have, it just seems to me that top reps, like it takes a week, 2 weeks, not even top reps actually, because we all say top reps sell anywhere they can sell, right? Sell or sell is like the whole thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
Close.
It doesn't matter who's selling. Whoever, if you are able to sell at an okay level, like if you're selling well enough to stay out in the summer and not be sent home, it doesn't matter where you go. It's going to take a week or 2 weeks to kind of acclimate to the culture. Mm-hmm. Anywhere in the U.S. is different. I mean, New Orleans is a different country, in my opinion. Like it's completely different. It doesn't matter where you go. The principles of persuasion influence are the same.
Literally, right? The underlying principles of how people make decisions is the same everywhere.
Exactly. So I can't imagine it to be that much different. I mean, even coming from, I look back on my mission that I served in Italy, living in Rome. If I knew half the stuff that I did now.
Oh my gosh, dude.
I mean,
same.
Completely different. Yeah, in Argentina, right? I just have to think if they have some sort of Western culture influence, it's got to be very similar. The principles have to be the same.
Yeah, and that's what blew my mind about this like Chinese and the tonal inflections was like, I was like, okay, maybe this is not true for like maybe Asian cultures.
Right. Because they're so different.
Or like you could make an argument that might not be true continentally because like we evolved differently in different continents or whatever. But no, as he was explaining what the tones meant, like the underlying meaning of them, I was like, holy cow, dude, it's the same. So like when you're a declaration, like declarative, it's like you end down.
Yeah.
You know, that tone is typically always lower than the previous one that comes before it. Which is this is exactly what we teach, right?
I took Chinese in high school. I don't remember any of that. But I don't remember any of it at all. So.
At all.
Yeah. No, but it'd still be interesting to like. Who is this guy that you interviewed?
It's a sales rep last year. I don't even remember his name. He still works with us, but he pulled me aside after a training and I was talking to him. Michael. He works with Braden's crew. I forget his last name.
Wait, doesn't Siwan speak?
No.
Suyin, he speaks Chinese too.
He speaks Chinese.
Yeah. No, I don't think.
Dude, we should ask him.
We should. Yeah, that's
like how does he pitch? Like I would want him to hear him pitch in Chinese. You know what I mean? He probably ran into someone who spoke Chinese on the doors.
I'm sure.
Well, is he like?
Did you guys ever run into? Did you guys ever run into neighborhoods in Atlanta where like legit no one speaks English?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just all Asian.
But that was San Diego more than anything, right? I mean, San Diego, there's entire neighborhoods.
Oh, San Diego's crazy.
It's worse.
I'm talking like they all immigrated to the same location, and it's not like second generation. Like we kind of speak it a little bit. It's like no English.
But that's where, because it's so culturally like dense in those areas, that's where bandwagoning is just fire. Like literally, you just start dropping names of like
that you can't pronounce.
That you can't even pronounce. You know, like the Changs, or do you know like Raj, or do you know like the white family? It doesn't even matter. Like whoever they are, everyone's just like, oh yeah, I know them.
Yeah.
And then and also this guy, and also this guy, and then it's a wrap. Like,
dude, so this is something interesting I used to do in these neighborhoods. Like, because when I started selling in Virginia, you'd run into entire neighborhoods where they're either from Nepal or from India, and so I was like, okay, really quickly you find out that everyone knows each other, right? And so all the salesmen would make negative comments about how it was harder to sell in those areas because everyone knows each other or whatever. So they would use that as the excuse to not sell. And I started thinking like, okay, what's the way I could bandwagon basically? So I started memorizing. I would ask them how to pronounce their last name so I could pronounce it like perfectly. And I would memorize the pronunciation, and then I would say that exact pronunciation, like how you're supposed to say their name to the neighbor and to whoever else I talk to. And it built so much rapport because like this white kid from in their mind they're like, you from white kid from Utah, you know?
Yeah.
That actually took the time to like learn how to pronounce their name, and then I used that the rest of the day. It was like fascinating how well that worked.
Oh, bro, I have a similar story. This summer. So in Vegas, there's like massive pockets of Vegas that are just like all Latinos, right? So like a lot of Mexicans, obviously, but just all from South America.
That's
Latin
offensive.
America.
You're just like you're stating facts. Like
No, but
they moved here from South America.
Latin American
what the
neighborhoods. It was like full on Latin American neighborhoods, right? Like everyone, and a lot of them is like, I would assume is first and second generation. They just didn't speak English. And I remember like our top rep, actually multiple reps, were coming to me just like, hey, like I can't sell here. Like every time I open a door, like I can't communicate with them. You know, like I try to use Google Translate. I try to do this stuff.
Sure.
I took Chinese in high school because my dad convinced me that like, that was the future for business, and then I forgot all of it. So I wish I'd spoke Spanish, and then I know Italian, which is kind of similar to Spanish, not the same. Anyway, so I didn't speak a lick of Spanish, but I made it my goal to like figure out how to sell in these areas, and it started with just like a greeting, and now like literally like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Soy Hyrum con el Pest Control. Estoy aquí para fumigar para los vecinos aquí. Si quieres, es muy barato.
You didn't know how to say that before?
The entire thing. No, and then I probably sold 10 people the last like month and a half of my not speaking a single word of English. So my response now to that limiting belief is learn Spanish. If you can't understand,
what do I do? Everyone speaks Vietnamese. Like learn Vietnamese.
Learn it. Just learn it. Learn the language.
Yeah,
that's how you sell there.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because I did it. No, literally, It was. I think it changed the culture a little bit in that respect because people stopped coming to me and asking me, "Hey, what should I do?" And I don't learn the language.
No, I'm
Just learn it.
honestly same. I know I know no Spanish, but I know all the bugs in Spanish. It's weird.
Those are like the key words.
The
too.
keywords, dude.
It's
That's like the trigger
Yeah.
words.
Cucarachas, hormigas, aracarnes.
Arapatas.
And they're like,
Arañas.
oh yeah,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
sí, muy.
Muy,
And you start to a lot of them.
Muy.
Muy, muy.
Just like-
Yo.
Mucho.
Just
Like a
the
lot.
keywords, they'll understand, and boom, you just hit them with the hook.
Dude, but
Do you know so and so? Oh yeah. Doing that for muy barato.
one of the
Like,
bigger
yeah, let's do it.
mistakes
Oh,
that I
see.
made, like early on, my rookie summer is, my team leader would call me all the time and be like, "Hey, I've got someone that speaks." Because at the time I was fluent in Portuguese still. I'm not anymore, but also Spanish. And so anytime you would run into someone from like Brazil or like immigrant, and we were knocking like really wealthy areas too, so they like really respected if you actually spoke, in even more so than like maybe a normal immigrant family or whatever. But so he would call me and he'd be like, "Hey, can you translate for me?" And then I'd end up getting like so many sales for him. And after about like maybe 15, 20 sales, I'm like, I'm doing this crap for free, dude.
Yeah.
And like I'm getting a sale for my team leader while I'm also not knocking for myself. And I'm still pretty broke because I just started this job. Like, I need to start charging for this crap.
Yeah, that's what it
So-
came down to. I got tired of like calling Heber and saying,
Yeah.
like, "Hey, bro, this is like, can you say this guy like what he needs
then
or
when you
whatever?" And some like
$50
white
a-
guy who's just got his Mexican friend on the phone trying to communicate. It's like, no, I want to connect with
Pointless.
these people. Yeah, no, 100%.
All right.
That's being all in my opinion.
Yeah, you just find a way to win no matter what.
Mhm.
Okay, so reason why Johnny's on the podcast today is because Johnny just got done with his sophomore sales season with
Yes.
us and absolutely killed it.
Goat.
Just to give you an idea, so Johnny had already serviced in your first, when did you hit the revenue marker of what you did the previous summer? Was
So-
that 3 weeks in?
So
4 weeks in?
my first month, which was April, I sold 100 accounts, 100 GPC accounts, and a week later or 2 weeks later, so six
weeks
later,
in?
that's when I passed my.
So six
first
weeks in, you had already serviced more revenue than you did your first sales season with us.
Accounts
Correct.
and revenue.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, accounts and revenue.
both.
General pest control.
Yeah.
Yeah, not mosquitoes. So I'm. This is why you're on the podcast today, because we want to talk a little bit about that and like highlight your success and your story. And you just bought a dope Range Rover, I will say. I walked
Yeah.
out and I was like, "That's the freaking Range Rover I've been trying to get my wife to buy." And then when I saw you, you're like,
Yeah.
"Dude, check out my car." I'm like, "Oh, that's Johnny's." I didn't realize you got it that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about just your summer in general. Like, what were some highlights for you? Just anything that you thought was significant or special that you want to talk about. Then we can get into some questions.
For sure. I'll definitely say, even before the summer started, I had a predetermined goal. I was like, this is going to happen.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go out there and just serve my time.
It's
And
like the sentence was already booked, dude. It
Yeah.
was already happening.
Yeah.
You just serve your time.
yeah.
Freak. That's that's dope. I like that
Yeah.
analogy.
So
That's Jason Walton.
Serve my
I,
time.
I had to
time.
serve my time. It's funny because going out there again for my second summer, I was just trying to find where I left off, where I went wrong for my first summer.
Okay.
So I would say the first week or two, I was basically trying to put the puzzles together.
Okay.
My first summer, I was like, okay, sweet. I left off here. What did I do last summer that I could have done last summer to be where I'm at right now?
Mm-hmm.
So the first week or two, it was basically doing unfinished business. So going back out there, pushing people, going at it like it's my first day. I've never done this before. Just push people, everyone and anyone. It's going to be awkward.
So like not leaving the doorstep until they
Correct.
either like
Yeah.
bought from you or just said like, please leave. I don't actually want this. I
Exactly.
really don't want this.
Yeah, because my first summer, after the first summer, I was like, oh man, I should have pushed more people. Then it was a would have, could have situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my second summer, I was like, okay, now it's time to like put that in. Like it's like round 2, the game has started again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like just like exercise, pushing people,
Mhm.
going out there, just crushing any limiting beliefs, just going head first.
Cool.
And doing that, my first 2-3 weeks was like, I just saw the difference in just like that first month by crushing it and selling over 100 accounts, which I've like never thought I was gonna do. Ever,
Yeah.
like probably like ever in a long time. So I would just say doing that, just finish where I left off and giving it my all.
That's awesome.
Just to add to that, I think one thing that I feel like separated Johnny from like the rest of all of our sales reps was just kind of what you talked about, but the decision was already made like beforehand. So when those first 2 weeks came and he went out and killing it and he was killing it, he wasn't making the decision in those 2 weeks to like, oh, maybe I'm going to have a big summer.
Yeah.
Like there was no surprise. Like
Yeah.
I remember your first week, I think you threw down like 11 and that was by far a PR for you. And I remember you weren't even that excited about it. Like it was just like, oh, it's just another day in the office. And Johnny,
you're that first day, your 11 day or 12. You sold 11 that
I
day?
sold 12 and 11 was serviced.
Okay, yeah,
that
because
day.
that's what I remember seeing on the leaderboards was like you sold 11.
I was consistently selling anywhere from 6 to 8 a day.
Yeah.
And I remember I texted you. I was like,
Yeah.
like, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Then like same week I PR'd to like a 12 day,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, okay, like this is real. Like I'm back in the game now.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like I would look around, just like the office. I would look at the leaderboards and whatnot, and I wouldn't say compare myself to others, but I just use the environment I was put in to best benefit me. So I would say I would just look around and said like these guys are doing this, that I should be doing better than what they're doing, what they're lacking on. And just using everyone's weakness and kind of comparing it to my weakness and bringing it to one entity and becoming a better version of all the top salesmen and molding my version of me.
So you would say you're like using, because we talk about this a lot where like comparing yourself to others is kind of risky because then you downregulate your own abilities. You're like, oh, you like people don't reach their potential because they compare themselves to just what the next best guy is doing.
Right.
But you're saying you kind of use competition as a tool to like fuel you. So
Yeah.
you would say like, okay, if this person's doing, role playing at night and they're doing this many accounts, I know I want to do, 10 a day or whatever. So I need to make sure that I'm at role playing at least 3 times as much or something along those lines. Right.
Yeah.
Or like working on skill sets that I know they lack in, which is the reason why they're not selling 10 a day.
Correct.
And identifying those things and incorporating them into your own repertoire or your toolbox. Okay. That's very different than comparing yourself to someone just to feel good about yourself. Cause you're like, oh, like at least I didn't do 2 today, which is what most sales reps do that have the problem of comparison. Is they use it as justification of their own mediocrity. But if you can use it productively to say like, well, I want to be like that person, so I'm going to compete with them, or like, I don't want to be like that, so I'm going to look at all of the reasons why they're not selling well, and I'm going to do that differently.
Correct.
Interesting. That's
Johnny,
cool.
let me ask you, and let me. I want you to tell me what you think of this idea because I talked to Hayden about this a couple weeks ago. And it's this. Basically, I gave a training. I don't know if you remember this, or Dave, if you remember that. I gave a training with about a month. No, I think it was like 2 weeks left of the summer. In one of the last trainings I ever gave, right? And people had like 1 or 2 weeks left to sell. Okay, and I basically set up and said like, hey, look, all the experience reps you see in front of you here, right? Johnny, No, young Johnny, like Johnny Chevalier, they've all doubled their production of what they did their first summer, their second summer.
I remember that too.
You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And it's basically like, look,
everyone had already at least doubled their best summer.
Yeah, exactly. And
was that not the everything? What I was saying to everyone before is like you should minimum be doubling your best summer this year if you go apply this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And what I was trying to my point was trying to prove is like, look, how much time do we have left of selling from now until the end of the summer? And it's like, okay, well, like 1 or 2 selling weeks, right? So like however many, 6 days, 6 to 14 days of selling, right? It's like, okay, well, how much selling experience are you going to have during the off season? 0, right? So how much selling days do you have between now And when you start selling, when you start the summer that you're going to double your sales. And it was like, okay, like 6 to 14 selling days.
Yeah.
Right? If you break it down to that. It's like, exactly. I was basically like, look, this is just what happens. What happens is you double your sales year 2 from year 1. And what I realized is that is actually flawed, that it doesn't just happen naturally. It's not about acquiring more sales skills year 1 to year 2. It's about becoming the type of person who is going to sell double what you sold your first year.
Yeah.
I want to see what you think about that, because I think you more than anyone else took that seriously, doing 75 hard and doing all the it seemed like you were focused more on mental, less on specific training skills. You talked to top reps.
Yeah.
But it was more about how can I become the guy who is going to do who would do this, instead of how do I do this? It's a different question. And I realized from my time when I doubled mine from year 1 to year 2, I went from 100 accounts to 200. I realized the same thing. I focused so much on sales skills. I focused so much on the Mox University, like specific sales training, like the techniques for selling, instead of the first creation and 7 habits of becoming that guy. And it took me like 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, like 2 or 3 weeks in my second summer, I was just getting kicked in the face.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's going on? I thought you're supposed to double your sales your second summer. I still had to become the new guy. I had to become the guy who was going to sell 100K, 120K, whatever in revenue.
Yep. Before you answer this is actually why I think one of the bigger mistakes I made with the foundations modules is putting the best modules like at the very end.
Yeah.
It's like 9, 10, 11, like standards,
standards,
focus, and beliefs.
Yeah.
It's after scripting. I'm like, man, we need to put that first, because that's actually the way. That is the real key. Anyway, so yeah,
what are your
about
thoughts on
becoming
that
person
theory there?
Yeah. So what I have to say about that is you need to determine that way before you even start. So create a statement of definite purpose way before you start. Just like starting in the beginning, literally start, whether it be if your goal is become a millionaire, whether it be sell X amount of account or revenue wise, you need to start with wanting that and start with a definite purpose of, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And do I really want to do this? Am I willing to pay the price to actually accomplish this? So you need to determine that first before we go on at it. If you don't, then you're basically a hollow man, a dead man walking when you start, because you have no statement of definite purpose, you have no direction, and you're gonna crash on your face and burn.
Yeah. So like that's the perfect answer to the question of like how do you go do something that you've never done before? How do you go achieve something big in your life? For you, that was making 6 figures this summer, achieving you tripled your revenue essentially from your first year, just about, if not more, maybe. Is that right?
It was like
double and a half.
2.5x your revenue from the first summer. So that starts, what you're saying is that starts before. And even so, like, I know we did train on the sales skills, but like when I would train with you, when we did our couple of lives here, it's like Johnny just has this look in his eye, man. Like, I've seen this before, and this always goes really well. It's really hard to lose when you have that definiteness of purpose, and you've outlined, not just in as we say, a statement of definite purpose, but like in your mind, you already made up your mind that it happened.
Yeah.
And then it's just about doing your time, like paying the price.
I think too, like, kind of to what Hyrum was saying, it doesn't actually matter, like, this sounds weird, but it doesn't actually matter the results, right, in anything. All that matters is actually the type of person you are.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about, like, there's some quote that I remember one of my really good friends told me one time. He's like, he owns this like supplement company, and they're like killing it right now. And one of the things that he
shout out.
Brave and Grant, stud.
Little Gains and Bulk shout out.
Gains and Bulk.
This is like a natural bodybuilding a supplement company, and they're like killing it. And his big thing, and one of the things that he would like always tell me, we served our mission together, is that mission? Once a but what he would tell me is, once a rich man gets rich once, he can always get rich again. And I think about that, like, if Bill Gates lost all of his money tomorrow, Like, I have no doubt that guy's going to go make millions again, if not billions. And it's not because of any lucky thing that Bill Gates is going to like stumble into. It's because of the person that he is. He already is a billionaire. So like, if you want to sell 300 accounts, if you want to sell, 500 accounts or whatever that looks like, whatever you want to do in life, it's like, become the person first. Are you a 500 account rep? And if you are, then the 500 accounts will come. The results will always come. But you have to be a 500 account rep before the 500 accounts actually happens.
Yeah, and the results you see are always a lagging indicator of the person that you've become, always. Which is why that's so cool, is like, seeing that. I talk about that look in your eye. I can see that with reps and leaders, like when they're just determined. There's a different feeling about the way they carry themselves. There's a different feeling about how seriously they take the training. There's a different feeling about like what they do in their free time. And I could see that you were already that person once you decided. Yeah. Then it was just a matter of time passing. And like you're saying,
you need to exercise before game day starts. So like in the off season, exercise that, become that person, set up commitments, daily commitments, weekly commitments, exercise that. That way when game day starts, boom, you're right there. You're already dashed in front of everyone else. So you just got to decide that when it starts, it's going to serve you well.
Yeah, I think it's like it's taking action and looking at it from first principles standpoint. Like what is action, is doing something hard just white knuckling? Or do you look at it from why are you doing that hard thing? And if the why is strong enough, that becomes not as hard.
Yeah.
Right? So like if you're committed enough, then the type of hard isn't just hard for hard's sake.
Right.
It's just the natural result of your mentality. It's just it's the outcome of what has already taken place mentally.
Dude, this is big. So like let me give you an example of how this applies to me right now, which is really interesting. So I'm thinking down the road in my future like financial goals. And one way to really conceptualize the person I want to become is giving like a monetary value to it and what that could mean for like my family and things like that. It's not the only way I do this, but it's one way to keep score. And so I'm thinking like, okay, in 10 years, what I want my net worth goal to be. And I just realized that like the guy that has this net worth is probably really good at certain things that I'm lacking at right now. And so I decided to do 75 hard with that in mind, because I just kept asking myself, like, would a guy worth this much money be meticulous about planning his day every single day and really meticulous about a weekly planning and really meticulous about executing on quarterly and yearly goals? Or would he kind of just be haphazard and just like let things happen? Like the answer is clearly that if you have like, let's say $50-100 million net worth or whatever, it's like you'd be really good at planning every single day, right? That's probably a easy thing to determine. So then I just realized, okay, so what's the gap between me right now and who, I have $5-10 million net worth or whatever, to the guy that has that net worth goal that I have for 10 years from now. It's like one of the obvious ones is just meticulousness with planning and executing and keeping commitments. And that was the framework through which I decided, okay, I'm going to do 75 hard, because what it forces, I'm adding more to my plate. So 2 workouts a day, drink a gallon of water. For me, I picked the diet of no gluten, no sugar, which is I need to really do for my health right now. And then reading 10 pages a day, like actively every single day. And I thought like, every time I do 75 hard, even though I add more to my plate, I just get way better at planning, because I have to in order to do all the stuff I'm doing and fit that stuff in.
Yeah.
And so I just thought like, okay, well, this is the next step of me becoming that guy in the future, is this one skill set of being really meticulous with daily planning. And sure enough, like the only way that I get all that stuff done is if I'm thinking about it. Right now I'm thinking about, okay, tomorrow, my wife and I are going to general conference down in Salt Lake, and then we've got family in town, and then we got this and this, and they're probably going to want to go eat dinner at this place that they really like. So I'm going to have to make sure something's on the menu that I can, like, I'm planning every detail of the day because I have to. But the only reason I'm doing that and why it's easy for me to do it is because it's so clear that that's a skill that I'll need to have that future goal. But I already decided that I'm going to have that. So it's just a really easy thing to say, okay, what do I have to do right now?
Yeah. I feel like that's what you're basically doing is
it's reverse engineering from first principles that person.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that kind of relates to leadership I mean, well, I guess the question would be, where's the balance between allowing people to have to suffer and learn on their own to develop a skill like that, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of you going and hiring someone to do all of that for you, you decided to go out and acquire that skill on your own, right? So
Sure.
instead of maybe David and I doing that type of thing for our reps, we could force them to do it themselves, otherwise they'll fail, right?
Yeah.
But where's the balance between that and just leaving them out to dry and watching, like a sink or swim, watching just half of them fail and saying,
Well,
it's on you guys.
so that's a nuance to. I don't know if you're being rhtorical or not, but I actually have
No,
a
I
cool
wanna-
answer to
no,
this.
I wanna
So
know, yeah.
that's an interesting question
I really
because,
wanna
like,
know.
so
I
how
really
do you?
wanna know.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, so what's the balance between? What's interesting, by the way, I was listening to Ed Milet podcast that he did with his kids, and every question he asks is with, "I really want to know." So, how do you guys feel about like the way mom does this and how it affects?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Do you guys ever really think about money? I'm like, I really want to know. I'm like, dude,
That's,
I really
that's
want to know.
so true.
Yeah.
In all of his podcasts.
All
he
of them.
uses that
That's,
tonality.
and it's so engaging. That's why he's a
Oh.
great interviewer, because he's doing the I really want
And
to
he's
know.
the most,
tonality.
most genuine
he comes
guy.
across the most genuine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So sincere.
I don't even know if he is. He could be a serial killer for all I know, but like that guy sounds so
He's
genuine. to
manipulative
me.
or he's
Just
really
kidding.
genuine.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
follow him
This is the
anywhere.
skills of persuasion.
Okay, so the question is, how do you, in order for people to learn the skills they need to become something awesome, do you let them fail and learn it on their own, or do you give them the template and force them to do it so they become that person?
That's kind of our style.
So the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
Both of those, because it depends on the person on how malleable they are. If they're prideful and stubborn and always want to do things on their own, but you're trying to give them the template for success, they're going to have to pay the price either way. They're either going to have to follow what you say and submit to that and therefore learn how to do it, or they're going to have to reject what you say, not do it, and learn on their own how to do it. And that one takes longer because then you have to realize that you're wrong and then go apply the principles. But you have to pay the price either way. So it just depends on how prideful and stubborn the person is.
I think too, that's just a sign of a really good leader. Mm-hmm. Like knowing who you're working with.
Yeah.
Because some people are going to flourish in like a sink or swim environment where it's like, hey man, like go figure it out. Mm-hmm. And those people are going to develop systems and processes where they actually are really successful, and then you just go in and tweak things and give them advice. Other people, right, are going to sink in that environment. And so those people need to be put into specific systems and processes, and they need to be like walked through each step. So the answer yes to both, I think, is so true. And I think you have leaders on either side of the spectrum, but if you can be in the middle and be able to like just give people space and maybe a little bit of advice here and there and let them flourish,
right,
but then also just hold someone's hand and drag them through the mud to success. Like those
depending
are the best
on when
leaders.
they need that, right? It's like it when and also depending on what the leader is capable of. So like why would a leader not give someone the template to success? Like in sales, for example. Like if I know how to coach 1,000 level rep, why would I not coach everyone to be 1,000 level rep? Well, part of it might be I'm not actually capable of doing that one-on-one because I haven't developed processes that facilitate it. Part of it also might be I might not actually like be even physically, mentally capable to do that for enough people. And so even though I might know how to do it, I might not be able to teach it because I just am, incapable of it as a leader, or I might not know, right? So then at that point, if someone wants to be 1,000 level rep, they're going to have to learn on their own because the leader doesn't know how to teach them. But they can still go do it and learn on their own. Now, my philosophy though is like the better a leader can be at understanding processes and persuade people to go figure them out on their own with like key tactics and blueprints, that's when there's a really cool synergy, because a proactive sales rep or a proactive sales leader with a proactive manager or a proactive leader together, the one that's not micromanaging, that's where like I think the magic happens. Because I was just reading in Covey talking about the difference between micromanaging and delegating efficiently, and his point is really interesting. Is like if you're an individual producer, you're trading time for money always, right? So like an individual sales rep, you're going to go out and sell, but if you don't ever grow into a management position where you're leading other people to sell, you're never going to get away from the rat race of you having to make every dollar with your time. But a micromanager is actually no better, because a micromanager is now just trading time for dollars, but with multiple people. So he's just spending more time trading time for dollars. Does that make sense? Because like if I have to micromanage you to get your results, and I have to micromanage you, now I'm just micromanaging 3 people, but I'm still trading my time for money because it takes time to micromanage each person. So instead of me just getting those results every hour of the day, now I'm just micromanaging 3 people at the same time to get those results. But a really good delegation type leader, or he calls it a stewardship leader, is able to enable many people at the same time to go get results that are outcomes based and not have to micromanage them, which that's, for better or for worse, been my philosophy of leadership, that I just like more. I think it enables people to actually grow as people. I don't know how we got on that tangent, but
no, being proactive is just the key. Now that you say that, I think that's why the 3 of us have been so successful, is like our core leadership.
Yeah.
Because Johnny, if Hyrum and I died tomorrow, Johnny would still go build an empire. Johnny's a beast. Like Johnny's going to grind and Johnny's going to figure it out regardless. But I think Johnny is also wise and open enough to listen to advice that Hyrum and I have, having done some of the things that Johnny wants to accomplish. So I think when the 3 of us have like synergy and we're all being proactive, even Hyrum and I, like in our partnership, like Hyrum and I are very different. And like if people know us, like we have to tell people that we're brothers all the time. We'll get on a call and we're just like, halfway through the call, I'm like, yeah, like Hyrum and I grew up, and they're like, oh, like, did you guys grow up together? And I'm like,
know each other?
Yeah, like we're brothers. Yeah, and no one ever knows because we're so different. But because I think a strength that Hyrum and I have is we're both like proactive and maybe sometimes stubborn in our ways, but also open enough to just like learn from each other. I think that makes us really successful, and then Johnny's the same way. That's why like the 3 of us working together like can go do big things just because of the proactivity. Dude, collectively.
We're so different that like our mentality with recruiting, when we would do like we'd double up and do recruiting meetings last year, and that was how we built a huge team, was if they didn't like one of us, at least they like
the other one. Yeah,
we're covering all bases.
Maybe they hate me, but they're gonna love David.
You just go really hard in your own personalities, and you're like good cop, bad cop at the very worst.
You can't not like,
yeah, no. Dude. But what's so interesting is I was worried that synergy and that it really is interdependence is what it actually is.
Completely.
That I was worried that wouldn't translate into working with Johnny and our other leaders, but it actually has. Like I was thinking it was this is just a fraternal thing, right? Like, born out of the same womb, and we're just like, we've got that, magic. Absolutely not. You can create this with anyone that you're working with, assuming they're amenable, right? like Johnny and I have just been murdering first meetings recently, because we're following the same roadmap, and we're both on the same page. And
there's real synergy there.
But what's interesting is we've done the legwork that David and I did before. Johnny has now done that legwork to where we're on the same page. And the other key, I think, which is kind of unrelated, but it comes down. I think David and I will fight or have arguments. How often do you think we have arguments?
Every day.
2 to 4 weeks. It depends.
Yeah,
right?
maybe once a month.
Once a month, maybe. And we'll kind of get heated because we can both be emotional, but what's interesting, it is.
And then I'm just throwing out things like, I wish you were never born.
Yeah. After all that, right?
I hate it here. You guys are like in an I hate you relationship.
Yeah, sometimes we'll start hitting each other, but that usually rarely, right? It's rarely.
What does Cubby say? Is like you both need each other's weaknesses to justify your own insecurities.
That's so deep.
It's like
so deep. That's so deep. But what's so funny is we get down really quickly, and like it's gotten quicker and quicker. We get down to brass tacks and we start talking about who cares about more than the other about a certain scenario, and we just and the reason it's so healthy is because we understand deeply each other's motives, and that we are 100% aligned on that. And if the people who are working for you don't understand your motives, if your motives are just off and you're not, they're not great, then that's obviously minimum, right? But assuming you have pure motives, if that's not being communicated to the people who are working for you, it's game over. I mean, you're never going to have that kind of synergy. You're never going to have that kind of interdependence with them, because they're constantly asking themselves, what are you trying to do in this situation? what is the point? It's just so much mental energy. That
Yeah.
alone, the mental energy to do
Well,
that.
and like
is
by
brutal.
as a really good leader is able to build the emotional bank account of all of the relationships they have, and so even if you do make withdrawals, it's never actually making a withdrawal of trust from the relationship. So you can have freedom to make mistakes and be human, but people are never questioning your motives because there's so much trust built up there, you know. Whereas like there's a couple of relationships in my life right now where I always feel like I'm walking on eggshells with the person that I'm talking to and just measuring every word because I'm wondering how much it's going to offend them. And at first I was really frustrated with that. Like, man, why I thought this person was my friend, and I'm like, I can't even like say something without worrying about it being offensive. And then I realized the other day, I was like, this is actually my problem because I made too many emotional withdrawals from that bank account to where I now have to measure every word because he's just wondering how duplicitous I am. Not that I am actually, because I feel like my intentions are pure, but because I've made so many other withdrawals from that relationship, he now wonders whether or not I have his best interest in mind in everything that I say.
It's so easy to do. I assume this like a.
It's with you,
someone
actually.
who-
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Oh, I don't feel that way at all with you guys, which is why that's so funny. Maybe you guys feel that way towards me, but
Is this? Yeah, it is actually.
So many
Yeah.
emotional withdrawals.
Is this with someone who works for you, or is that too much information?
worked. Yeah.
Okay,
previously.
so I think part of the problem is that I can't remember what I was going to say because what you said was so funny. To be honest with you, so.
But my whole point with that was like
Jordan,
that I think
cut
is what
that
you
out.
guys are really good as. No, we don't cut anything from this, dude. But that's I think what you guys have all done really well. And as I've spent more time with you, Johnny, I've realized that like you have the makings of a really great leader because of how sincere you are and how easy it is for you to make emotional deposits with the people that you manage and will manage. And it's really easy for a person who's driven and competitive, if they're sincere, to win. It's hard for them to lose because of that aspect of sincerity and what it builds in terms of trust. So when I was 21 years old, I had big dreams of a few things. Becoming a millionaire by the time I was 30, that was a big goal of mine. I wanted to own my own business, and I wanted to create financial freedom through investing in real estate, startups, any other type of vehicle that would give me passive income so that I could really provide for my family and my parents in a significant way because of how much they sacrificed for me growing up. I didn't grow up in the most well-off household, and so I really wanted to create a life for my family that they could be comfortable. I'm a grandchild of immigrants, and I had a lot of people in my life that came before me that have sacrificed a ton to create the good things that I have. I wanted to create financial freedom so that I could give back and serve significantly. I thought I was going to do that by, first off, playing football in the NFL. I obsessed over football growing up, but then I quickly got cut from my college team upon arriving, basically. So then I thought I was going to do that by getting into a prominent business school and excelling there, and then, getting a high-paying job out of college. And I didn't get into any of the business schools that I applied for, and there were more than one. So I had some, learning disabilities and a couple other things that felt like held me back in that way. Bottom line, it just didn't work. So after all the failed attempts to make money and try to achieve my dreams early, I was basically desperate and just really didn't think that it would all work out. I was doing a bunch of these hourly jobs and barely making ends meet and donating plasma, all the things you do when you're a poor college kid. I had a friend approach me and say that he had made $50,000 doing a sales job during the summer in between semesters. And he was a really well-known and highly prominent athlete. I had grown up hearing about how good he was at football. And so we became friends after I got home from a mission for my church. I just trusted him. So I looked into it. I ended up doing this sales job thinking that it would just be a better way to hold me over while I really figured out how I was going to provide financially for my family and really make a big dent in my dreams. Fast forward a few years later, I was with the same company doing that job over and over again while I was going to school, making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now coaching and teaching other people how to do the same thing. It completely changed my life in a way that I did not expect, learning how to persuade and influence people at a high level because you practice that day in and day out. That translated over into every other relationship and aspect of my life that I care more about than just sales. And then obviously financially being able to get well ahead of all of my peers and the other people who were not willing to make those sacrifices of doing that sales job during the summer in the off months of school. And then fast forward even more ahead, I was able to become a millionaire by 26 and have a multiple $1 million net worth by the time I was 30, upwards of $10 million plus, and invest in real estate early on in my 20s, be able to give back and help pay for mission trips and do service opportunities that I just otherwise wouldn't have had. But what I'm most proud of is being able to give my family, my parents, my wife, my immediate immediate family the life that they just really never had growing up. Because I think deep down we all want to be the type of people that when all is said and done, we actually have made a difference in other people's lives. And I feel like that's actually really the deep result of what this job ended up doing for me in a way that I just did not expect. Long story short, I'm obsessed with teaching the same things to other people. And since I have gotten to management and now I'm a partner in our company, I've been able to work with upwards of over 1,000 sales reps who are young, ambitious, college-age kids mostly, who start doing this job just to pay for school, but end up finding out that it's highly impactful for every other aspect of their life. So right now we are hiring and we have limited spots available to take on of people. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description of this video or in my bio. You can check that out, apply and see if you're a good fit or a candidate for this job. We have personality profiles that can match you with income and earning potential that is very much historically accurate of people that have gone in our program before. And if you take the leap of faith and at least learn about whether this could be a good fit for you, I think you're going to be not only really impressed, but if your results are even half as good as what everyone else has gone through this program has experienced, the only problem that you'll have is that one, you didn't know about this sooner, and two, that you didn't sign up and try to do it yesterday. All right, so give it a shot. Check out the link in my bio, and I'll see you guys in the rest of the episode. All right,
This is close enough.
Johnny, so you just made $100,000 in your basically second 4 months of selling, so like months 4 through 8. What was the most challenging part of doing that this year in this sales season? What was the most challenging part of making $100,000 this year?
I will have to say paying the price was the challenging part.
Okay.
So creating that roadmap was cool. It was like the easiest part, but
Like your game plan to
my game
get
plan
it?
was the easiest part, but paying the price was the hardest part.
Mm.
And it's funny because it's not glamorous. It's not pretty. You get out there, you get your fist kicked in, literally. Literally. Especially with
kick you in the face.
It's funny. It's funny because I'll talk about a different story later, but
yeah.
But yeah, just going out there and paying the price was the hardest part for me, and on top of that, staying positive. And the caveat to all that is keeping a smile in your face every single day.
Even when it's hard to, just
Yeah.
doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, when did you find it difficult to be happy or like keep that smile on your face and have a good attitude? Like when was the most challenging times that you had to just do that anyway, even if you didn't feel like it?
So for me, I would have to say when I'm super micro and I'm super aware of those small things, when things aren't going my way, my brain tends to run fast, and I'll have to say just being patient with my guys, my team leads, anyone that works under me, being patient with them. And I get frustrated a lot, and I'll just have to say being patient.
Would you find that with yourself too? So like you make a mistake on a door and like you could have got a sale, but
Yeah.
you just have to learn how to be patient, and it just doesn't
Being
matter. It's
patient-
sunk cost.
Being patient and resetting after each and every door, and
Yeah, I love that.
adjusting every door.
Mm-hmm.
Always be adjusting.
Yeah, because if I knock David's door and he's pissed at me and like calls me a bad name and says like, why don't you go get a real job? But then I carry that I'm sad, maybe I should go get a real job. And now I show up on the next doorstep and maybe that person's just teed up to buy, like their pain threshold is so, like their action threshold is low because their pain is so high and they're ready to switch companies. I'll screw that sale up every time if I'm taking my emotions from the previous door, right?
Exactly.
I think, by the way, that's a strength and a weakness, because I find that the top performers and the guys who just win on a consistent basis, they are emotional to some point. like they winning is so emotional to them, or not losing is so emotional to them that they get really frustrated if they're not seeing the results that they're getting. Obviously, that can be a really negative thing, because then you can start spiraling downward.
Right.
But if you can strike the balance between not letting that get to you and affect your performance, but also letting it drive you to go achieve the results that you want to achieve, I just find that the winners, they've striked that balance. They've found that balance. When
When it comes to making 6 figures in 4 months, which you just did, how do you balance being emotional about your goals and like being emotionally attached to them, which is important, and not getting too emotional about anything that happens in the short term, but like using that to adjust like what you do so that you can get the results? Does that make sense? How do you balance like the emotions of the day-to-day versus being hyper emotional and attached to your goal in the long term?
I'll say having a tunnel vision, and it's funny, Bruce Lee said it best: be like water. So be malleable.
Yeah.
So whatever situation you put in, you need to be like water. If you put in a bucket, you become a bucket. If you put in a hard situation, you become that.
You're like adaptable to that hard situation.
Exactly. Yeah. You're adaptable. So I'll just say just being malleable and having that tunnel vision and just believing in yourself that
dude
you will.
That's so key. Like I just read Rich Diviney, who was at one point the commander of SEAL Team 6, and he also developed what's called the Mind Gym for SEAL Team 6, where they do a bunch of really like forward-thinking, high-level, experimental type health work of both mind and body for the SEAL teams to like have advancements in their performance, which interestingly enough is actually kind of controversial. Like there's like lobbyists that lobby against them doing that because they're basically treating the SEALs like lab mice, essentially, with these new like experiments that they do. That's how these lobbyists view this. Anyway, he wrote this book called The Attributes, and before he came into the SEALs, no one really knew what made a good SEAL, a Navy SEAL. It's like you just failed or you succeeded, and we end up with these people who get through this really hard thing with buds and Hell Week, and that's what we were left with. But he really wanted to identify like what are the actual consistent attributes of a high performing Navy SEAL. And that's what this book is about. That's how they developed the Mind Gym and their training protocols. But one of the things he said is like what we found, adaptability is one of the traits, one of the attributes. He said, we've done tons of research on this. We've talked to evolutionary biologists, evolutionary psychologists, and we've seen in our own research that those who are most successful and those who stand the test of time are not the strongest. In fact, strength becomes a weakness at a certain point. They're the most adaptable. This is also my theory of why really high net worth people are actually not usually very like big, like muscular, is because people who get their self-esteem from how big they are and like how strong they are, they tend to not focus on the things that actually make you really wealthy, which is mostly mindset stuff.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
unless you can use it as a tool to develop those traits, which is, I know what David does. I'm just trying to keep up, but that's
whatever, dude.
Anyway, so it's like those who win over time are not the strongest. They're the most adaptable. Anyway, yeah, that's sick.
It's interesting when you like think about like, I don't know, we can go to like caveman like talk or whatever, but like if you position every situation that you are in, whether it's like work is like the easiest one to I guess compare, right? As like a survival type mode of like in order to be successful, like success is really just like survival at its peak or at its like ultimate, right? So in other words, like selling a ton of accounts is just surviving better than others. Then yeah, those people who are going to be most adaptable are going to be better at surviving, right? They're going to be more dynamic in their ability to adjust to things coming their way, right? I've never thought about that before. That's like very interesting.
Yep. And then once species survive long enough, they eventually develop politics within their communities, because they realize that the next step in growth is being able to be more agreeable. And so the alphas in chimp colonies or troops is what they're called, that have the most quantity, the highest quantity of population amongst their troops. The alpha is typically not just a small male, he's typically the smallest of the males. And has gained favor with
the females,
with two of the top, one if not two of the top more highly sociable females that are like sought after, and then from there is really able to politic with the rest of the males and gain favor with them by giving them things.
That's why I'm married and David isn't yet. That's exactly why.
That's fascinating though, right? Because you think like, well, everyone talks about the alpha being like the strongest. This is why I like hate Liver King's crap, is because he's like, Liver King is basically making everyone that follows him like devolve into monkeys instead of evolve into something. Anyway, but Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. We could have a whole episode on that. It's kind of interesting. So you just went from making, how much did you make your first summer, your first sales season?
$25,000.
So you made you went from making $25,000 to making $100,000 in the same 4-month period. If you were to describe the differences between those two performances in like one sentence, how would you sum it up? Not to put pressure on you to be able to sum up something that's probably really complex, but
I would say believing that hard work beats talent any day.
Nice.
I wasn't the most talented, but I went out there. I saw these other guys throwing huge numbers, 6-figure summers, and the only thing that popped in my head is I gotta work harder than they are.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So just believing that hard work beats talent any day.
Which is actually true. I mean, that's not just a belief that enables you, but might not actually be true, but it works for you because it serves you. That's a very true thing, you know.
Yeah. Could I ask a follow-up question? So, what do you feel like was the key in getting to that belief, like in getting to that mindset, where you did believe that you could go make $100,000 in 4 months?
Determining the price that it would take to become that person. So if you want to make $100,000 in a summer, you need to sacrifice a lot: your body, your mind, anything and everything, and burn all the ships and go out there and do it.
Yeah, burn the ships. That's been your guys' like mantra since Atlanta.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Burn
It's
the
kind
ships.
of sick too. Just Johnny, it's been so cool, and I know like Hyrum agrees with this, but seeing Johnny's progression from when he was like a first-year rep, like his first summer. In fact, Johnny's first day when he came out to Atlanta and we were selling in Atlanta, Johnny didn't, and I hope you're okay with me sharing this. We can cut it if not.
You were the worst
Johnny
salesman.
sucked. No.
There could be worse out there. I fully acknowledge that there might have been worse. There could have been people with worse pitches. I fully acknowledge that they might exist in the world. I'd be stupid not to think that, but I just have never seen it.
I enjoyed that impression the other day.
Did you?
Everyone
was like,
I think we joke about it so much that like
the point was the point was to make it stupid. The point was to not have people laugh and for it to be really awkward because they're like, what the F is going on? Anyway, sorry, keep going.
And then it's funnier to you.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny when he like brought up the impressions? Like in our team, we always talk about impressions. Like, oh, let's impersonate Hayden. Let's impersonate Scott. And like that's the first thing that popped in my head. I'm like, okay, let's see how he does for Jason, because I don't think we've ever.
I could have done a way better impersonation.
Johnny has the best
there's
impressions.
no one better at impersonations than Johnny.
It's crazy.
There's no one.
Dude, okay, I want to hear an impersonation of me.
Yeah,
dude.
I bet you
Wait,
could.
can you do an impersonation of
after
Scott
this,
West?
Johnny picks up. Johnny's attention to detail is crazy, so he picks up on the smallest things, and then he'll just like do an impersonation of something, and it's just the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Because that's the key with a good impersonation. You exasperate
Yeah,
the
yeah,
little.
yeah.
It's actually kind of detail.
I'll do one after this of you.
Okay.
Just promise
What
me
were
you
we
won't get
saying?
offended.
No,
Dude, I'm not easily offended. I'm not easily offended unless you say something about my future.
No, so anyways, so Johnny's first summer, I remember it was his first week when and his first few days, Johnny didn't have enough money in his I hope you're okay with me saying
no, okay.
But Johnny didn't have enough money in his bank account to go buy like bed sheets. So Johnny slept with a couch pillow, and I kid you not, he slept with a couch pillow and a shower curtain on his first like 2 or 3 nights that summer. And now fast forward, Johnny owns a Range Rover. Look at these J's. Johnny just picked those up, making 6 figures in 4 months. It's actually crazy. Like it's wild.
Like no one thought that you.
I didn't. I never
we used to
thought.
always do
Came
Mateo.
from nothing.
Dude, we
I
always
mean,
used
really
to joke about this
nothing.
with Mateo. All the
Yeah.
top reps, there's like this joke that a couple of the other DOSs have. It's like, dude, if this guy can do it, I mean, literally, he's like, I don't want to say this, but he's like, anyone can do it.
Like literally pick someone off the street.
Anyone,
They can do it.
homeless, not homeless,
You ever
It's
thought
funny.
about
speech
hiring-
impediments, no speech
I
impediments.
always-
Anyone.
That's like that was literally one of my driving factor of like why I did what I did, like why I did so well, is I was just like I don't want to say compare myself, But I would look at the top guys. I would look at Mateo. I would look at Braden Searle, all those top guys, and I would ask myself, why can't I do half of that? You know? Like, what's stopping me? There's literally no answer to that.
Yeah.
By just going out there and doing it. Just doing it. And that's like one part. That was one chapter that made my statement of definite purpose complete.
It's awesome. It's like if these people can do it, then I can as well.
Yeah.
And really what we're saying with that is like what you realize is that there's no such thing as anyone who's special. There's just a lot of people who have either paid the price or not. That's it. And like, you know, we look up to people like Tim and Jason Walton and others, and it's like that is the effect. That result right there is the cumulative stacking of making good choices day in and day out over a very long period of time. Like that's what happens. But there's just normal humans. Exactly. So there's nothing special about anyone of us. But that's why it's so easy for me too. I've over the last couple of years, I've had some cool opportunities to spend some one-on-one time with people who have $1 billion net worth plus, a handful of them. And I walk away from every interaction where I'm just like, dude, I'm going to suck really bad in my life if I don't do at least what they did, because like if that guy can do it, like I for sure can. But I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying like, oh, they're just human like me. And all it takes is a way to make you just make the decision and then go figure it out. Yeah. Right. I was also talking with, I know we're getting off tangents here, but like, this is so good. I was talking with, one of the sales leader the other day, who's an up and coming team leader. And he was kind of asking me these questions. He's like, you know, I don't really have anyone in my org. And he's like, no offense to you, Hayden, but like I want to do some big things here. And I don't see very many people doing the big things that I want to do. So like, I really wish someone could teach me how to do these things. And I was like, hey man, let me let you in on a secret. It's like when you have goals that are bigger than everyone else around you, no one is going to teach you how to do those things. Yeah. So stop waiting for someone to come rescue you and teach you. That's what really successful people do. They freaking figure it out because they make a decision, and they don't actually care if anyone can teach them or not, because they've just decided that they're going to do what it takes. They'll figure it out. They'll pay the price. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. And that's like a really interesting thing, right? Because when your goals are big enough, there's probably very, very few people that can teach you how to achieve them. And so all that's left to do is go figure it out.
I agree.
I think too, just what we do, like summer sales, it's the ultimate like decider of who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. Like it just, everyone's true colors show in the summer. And I think it's so cool that we're all given the equal opportunity. We're all given the same opportunity. Like you were given the exact same opportunity that Johnny was. Johnny was given the same opportunity that I was. Yeah. And it's just whoever's going to take that opportunity and run with it, those are going to be the people who see the fruits, like and are crazy successful. Everyone is given the opportunity to go make six figures in a summer, or go eventually make $1 million or more. Like,
and that's what I keep saying to you guys, right? Is like I have been very fortunate to reach all my net worth goals in like half the time, multiple millions of dollars, and it would be an absolute travesty if you guys didn't do it in at least half the time, because you're building on stuff that we kind of had to figure out on our own, right? And so like my whole job, my whole mission in life is to enable you to do it in half the time. And that's exactly what's happening. Everyone that's directly below me that I manage is on the path to make $1 million a year in half the time that I did. And then the team leads that are killing it below them, they're doing it even faster. So it would just be a shame to not have that as the goal too. And once you realize like, oh, if they can do it, then I surely can. It's like, no, not only that, if they can do it, you should actually do it faster.
Yeah, it's awesome because you bring that up. I have to say this. It's awesome that you bring that up because people will ask me, what's your advice? How did you accumulate six figures in one summer? And it's awesome because I always tell them, get plugged into the right system.
Plugged in.
Get plugged into the right system, one. Also having that culture that's going to literally just be the foundation of your success of coming months, even years. Yeah. So the system one, and also two, just starting with the statement of definite purpose. Yeah. Starting with the end in mind, that's going to serve you well in the future.
Huge. That's the only way to do it, really.
And culture. Yes. Culture is key.
And that's David's and my, and obviously by extension, Johnny, like that's our like goal for everything. I mean, it's we're just trying to drag as many people, if need be, drag them to success. I mean, I remember Jason talking about this a couple years ago, or telling me this, or something similar to this extent. But I'm now in that position where it's like David and I have more 6-figure positions than we have people to fill them. Like, our issue is not like if you came to me and said, "Here, I'm willing to invest $1 million in your guys' sales organization," I wouldn't know what to do with the money. It's like, I don't need money. I need bodies.
People, yeah.
We need people. I have the positions open, waiting to be filled.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's our job to create the culture and the experience that's going to fill the most amount of those positions.
Yeah.
And if that means dragging people kicking and screaming to those positions, then that's what's going to happen. Drag them to success.
Yeah.
And that's our mentality. Get whatever they need. That's what we're going to provide. That's what we're going to be.
Dude.
Right? Whether that's total hands off or if that's, tie them up and throw them in the back of a truck. Like, hey, we're going. Like, we're going to be successful together.
The greatest definition of entrepreneurship that I've ever heard is an entrepreneur is someone who takes personal responsibility for a problem that is not their own. And I feel like that's how we do leadership here as well. It's like you take personal responsibility for someone's success that is not your own. And that's how you start defining success for yourself. And that's really the ultimate way to do leadership, is like servant style leadership, right? That's like what a true leader is. Okay, so just a couple more questions, then we'll finish up here. You talked about culture of your sales office. How big of a role did the culture of your team and the people around you play in your ability to achieve your goals of making 6 figures this summer?
A huge part. It was basically half. I owe half of my success to my culture, the culture that David and Hyrum has created, and the culture that we are continue to keep alive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to say a culture of unity, brotherhood, and love. You can't have one without the others.
Unity, brotherhood, and love.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
So that culture, it's just awesome because you can go back after a long day at work and you just have a bunch of people a bunch of like-minded buddies that are going to have just open arms, like, hey, dude, you killed it out there. Oh, tomorrow, another do-over. We're going to restart tomorrow.
Yeah.
So just having that is just awesome to me.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
I would say that's something unique about our culture is everyone in our squad is honestly really competitive. Like, for the vast majority of the people that work with us are really competitive. A lot of them former athletes. We have guys that work for us that are like trying to be pro soccer players. Like we work with collegiate athletes. Like, so a lot of just naturally really competitive people. Mm-hmm. But it's been so cool to be a part of this. And we call it a culture, but we just call it a family more than anything. It really is like a brotherhood. It's a family. Awesome. And we just talk about that all the time. And everyone gets so tight. But the coolest part, I feel like, is everyone is so competitive and that drives them. But then what Johnny said, like, everyone's legitimately excited for the dude succeeding
someone
next
else's
to them.
Success. Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, like, I mean, Ashley, right? Ashley is one of our reps, Ashley Nielsen. She went out and sold 15 in a day. I don't know if there was a day that summer that the group chat, our team group chat, was that hype. Like, I don't think so.
For someone else.
Yeah, and it was all for her success.
That's
and
awesome.
So, like, I don't know. I think that makes our culture very unique because
that's big.
Everyone's crazy, like hyper competitive. Like, former athletes, hyper competitive. But then at the same time, everyone just gets so, like, just lit on other people succeeding and watching other people, like, achieve their goals.
And that's not about the people that you're hiring. That doesn't have to do with the people themselves. It doesn't matter who it is, because again, as we discussed a couple days ago,
plug people in.
We have people from way different backgrounds and walks of life and just personalities, interests. I mean, we like totally different stuff. This is just something that unified, which is work. Really, is the only unifying or common denominator among everyone. There are specific things that you can do as a leader, very conscious things that you can implement that can create that culture. That was not an accident. That was a first creation that David and I had in mind. Yeah. And we executed on that. Yeah. It didn't just automatically happen. We didn't just get lucky.
Flawlessly, I might add.
Bro, I feel like we could talk about this all day. Yeah. We get so, like, all the three of us get so passionate about our culture. I think it's, if I were to just give someone an elevator pitch on why they should come work for us or work with Johnny, like, it's just the culture. The culture is literally insane. It's just a family. It's a brotherhood. It's like people just feel like they belong to something,
Right.
and they do. It's like real. It's tangible.
I've thought about this principle a lot, and then I have one more question for you. But so like, I hate chemistry. Okay, chemistry is like by far the subject of the matter that I hate the most. But there is one thing that I really like about chemistry.
Breaking
it's just
Bad.
Breaking Bad, yeah. So actually, I actually
is
thought
the
of Breaking
only
Bad.
thing.
Yeah, really. So, you know, in chemistry, basically, if you want a certain outcome or a certain compound to be created, there's always a perfect formula to create that compound. It's just a matter of figuring out what elements and what quantity need to go together, right? Or what with the ingredients, essentially. But there's then one thing you can do to make those compounds form much quicker and in much greater quantity, and that's called a catalyst. So, and people who are actual chemists will, you know, roast me for I just butchered the analogy. But I view our role as leaders as being a catalyst for people's success. It's like Tesla, for example. Elon Musk's whole mission of Tesla is to further the advent of sustainable energy, be a catalyst for it. Because if I've heard him talk about this in interviews where he says, like, we're not trying to create sustainable energy as if it didn't exist before or as if it weren't going to already happen without us. It will happen without us. It's inevitable. But our job is to be a catalyst to make it happen faster. And in greater quantity and quality than it would have happened had we not existed. And that's kind of like what a really good culture does too. Because I look at what you did, Johnny, and say like, okay, well, what if you weren't in that culture? Would you have been able to succeed this summer? Absolutely. There is a formula to go make six figures, whether you're in a sucky culture or whether you're in a really good one. But being in a good one is a catalyst that makes it much easier,
Faster,
higher quality, much faster, and it provides this acceleration that you can't achieve without that catalyst. And that's how we have to view leadership as well. It's like your job is to be the catalyst that makes it so that their life is much better, higher quality. They get to places faster and in a better, more principle-centered, productive way than had you not existed in their lives. Like you take personal responsibility for that journey. And that's, I think, a cool way to look at that. And why is a culture important? It's not that they couldn't succeed without it. It's that it is a catalyst to make it happen much faster and in greater quality and quantity.
Yeah, we view our culture in the same way. I mean, it's, again, we talk about family all the time to the point where we manifest it. And so we view our culture
literally adopting people right now.
we view like
rituals.
Our view of culture during the summer is that, look, every sales office is a family or not. It just depends on how dysfunctional they are.
That's true.
That's totally relative. Everything's a family because they spend too much time together. And so in the same, what we view is in the same way that if you come from a very dysfunctional family, you can have a lot of baggage and a lot of really hard things that you have to overcome just from coming for that. We view it in the same way. And on the flip side, the people who come from really healthy and stable families have such a real advantage over people who don't come from that, who come from really broken or messed up families, right? And that could go as far as we wanted. We view it in the same way in sales. Like, we are going to have the least dysfunctional family we possibly have during the summer to create that, because we believe that's going to have the most, that's going to be the biggest factor in people's success, we believe, during the summer. And
it's clearly,
we view it that way.
And your understanding of that and then executing on the principles that make that true is obviously a huge key to success. Okay, so the last question I have is, you know, I texted you, like, I wanted to hear a little bit about your backstory and like your family life. But the actual real question I want to ask with this is, like, it's something that I've felt for myself personally too. What about your background and how you grew up and your circumstance would make most people become a victim and fail at things in life, like trying to go make six figures in a summer? But that you did not let that make you become a victim and fail at your goals. What things did you have to experience or overcome, or even maybe provided as themselves to be a catalyst for your success from your background, your family life, how you grew up, that were difficult or challenging, or were like most people would have failed because of those things and used them as an excuse to not succeed, yet you used it as an excuse to succeed? And the reason why I'm asking this is because I think about this for myself a lot. And like when people will complain about their whatever, I'm like, why aren't you getting results? It's like, oh, it's because I just was never taught how to deal with money growing up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they don't know anything about me. They just look at my life and they're like, clearly, mate, you were. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I wasn't at all. I like woke up in the middle of the night many times growing up listening to my parents talk about how they were going to not tell us that our house was broken into. And I know other people who have had similar experiences and use that as an excuse to not succeed. So I'm curious to like what elements of your life have been that for you, if that's okay. I know that could be a little personal and deep, but
sweet. Yeah. Yeah, I'll get into it. So I'm from a third world country, the Congo. Right?
How long did you live there?
So I moved here when I was 9 years old.
So you lived in the Congo till you were 9.
Yeah. Now
cool.
I'm 21. So yeah, basically my parents, they preached it. I have 13 siblings. They preached it to all 14 of their kids.
Yeah.
That you moving to this country, United States, you will have to go out there and make the most out of everything that country has to provide for you. Everything. So I'll just say I was instilled with hard work.
Yeah.
Working hard. So I went out there here basically just taking advantage of like everything that's been like in my path.
Yeah.
Whether it be the connections I make here, taking advantage of that, and providing value to anyone and everyone around me, and also just proving to my parents that, look, Mom, look, Dad, I did it. I took advantage of it. And
you're the oldest, yeah?
No, I'm not the oldest.
Who's the oldest in your family?
The oldest, he's actually in his late 30s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am.
So where do you fall in line?
I'm third to last.
Third to last?
Yeah. So
really?
Yeah, it's a huge family.
Dang.
And more than half of them are in Europe. Some are still in Africa, and some are here in the States.
Okay.
So I had a chip on my shoulder, like, look, Dad, I'm gonna be the best son that you ever had. Cool. Like, I'll compete, and I'll outcompete everyone else that you've raised. And I'll be successful at that.
Yeah.
And just having that chip on my shoulders just drove everything I did. Drove me in every aspect of my life. And yeah.
That's big, dude. I mean, I feel like this is kind of what happens with, because my grandparents were immigrants from the Netherlands, and so I'm 2 generations removed from immigrants, but I'm well aware of the stories of like what my grandfather specifically had to go through to like make it possible for me to even do what I'm doing right now, because when I talk to a lot of people who grew up in maybe a poor family or adverse circumstances, they'll go get really wealthy and successful, and they kind of like will talk down about like the mentality of their parents, right? Like, yeah, my parents this, I wanted to be different. My parents that, I wanted to be different. I view it completely different for me, and I find that like most people are happy view this different as well. Happy and successful is like my parents were building off of nothing, literally. And so if you look at like what they had to like learn from and build off of, it was literally nothing. And my grandparents were building off of nothing either. I mean, there was a time where like there's a scenario in the multiverse where I don't exist because my grandpa was shot for housing Jews from the Nazis. But he wasn't, though. He somehow got away from that. And so like my job is to go make life better in my generation for the people that come after me, and build off of all the good things that I learned from my parents. In spite of the adverse circumstances or the things that I didn't learn, right? And so it was interesting to me to, like, I went to church with your family all summer in Dallas, and without the risk of getting really emotional about this, because it actually makes me super emotional, is I always joke that like a lot of what people would talk about from the pulpit in that church specifically was always kind of cringy to me. And so to get away from the cringe, I would just like watch. Sarah and I would always sit 2 or 3 rows behind your family on the right, and your family is always 2 or 3 rows in front of us in the middle, and all the kids and your parents. And I would just sit there and watch and just imagine like how I just viewed this almost like a train, where like in every family the train is just going down the same tracks over and over and over again, and that doesn't ever change because habits just get passed down, right? Unless you make a conscious decision to change. But there's always one person that switches the tracks over and like changes the trajectory of that family's future forever. And I would picture that analogy and think like Johnny is literally that person for this family. and I could see how just amazing your parents were and how gentle and kind and like loving, and how your brothers, I loved being around your brothers and like talking about my Tesla with them, and they're so funny. But like I just couldn't get that out of my head of like how much good you're really doing for your family because of this, and just, you know, the generations to come because of who you've decided to be and the goals that you've set for yourself. It's so much more than making 6 figures in a summer, although I keep saying that as if it's actually that important. It's not. What's more important is like being that switcher on the railroad that changes the trajectory for good forever for the people that come after you. So I just thought I'd tell you that in person, because I've talked about it before, but like that's deep and just really meaningful to me. So for whatever it's worth.
Thanks. It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Just you need to start by taking responsibility, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the oldest. I'm not the youngest, but I will take responsibility and do what my oldest siblings didn't get the chance to do. And people will have excuses that, oh, but I'm still the baby of the family. Oh, I have to first graduate first. Oh, my mom told me I can't do this job yet. You need to take responsibility. If you don't take responsibility and take a risk, you won't go anywhere. Because you won't get things done.
You're not just taking responsibility for your own success, like you're taking responsibility for your families.
Yeah. And if they don't see that, you need to show them.
Yeah.
Forcefully.
Yeah, your job is not to convince them with your words that it's real. It's like to show them that it's actually real.
And the tangibilities comes after that, like the cool cars and the lavish gifts that you bring back home to your parents, to your parents and siblings, and they see those tangibilities that from your hard work, and that's what matters most.
That's amazing.
So I have a story behind that.
I'm laughing because that's like literally me. My wife would be like, so when I hired my first assistant, my wife was like, she's like, number one rule is you have to make Hayden eat before he comes home every day. Because I would like get so busy and I was like, guys, I don't have time to eat. And then I'd like, it'd be like 10 o'clock at night. I'd be like, frick, I haven't eaten anything.
Even if you have time to eat, you're just so impatient for the results. Like, I have to be doing this to like put me on track for what I want, you know?
Yeah.
So a story behind that is during the summer, it was a bad habit that I picked up. I would wake up, put my shirt, go knock. Not even like wake up, not even like say bye to my roommates. Just wake up, get my Segway.
No morning routine, no meditation, nothing. You just
wake up, because I was so impatient. I was like, dude, like I am behind. I'm like 5 steps behind. I need to go. I need to do this.
Yeah.
So I was doing that for probably like a week or two, and I would say I was performing well. The accounts was going through. Everything was going well, but I just lacked, like, I just didn't pay attention to my physical. So I remember one day I closed this one deal. One day I closed this one deal. I was building a report because I love building a report for all my customers and just really getting to know them before I leave. But an emergency happened, so I had to leave. I literally told the customer, hey, I have to go. Something huge happened. That was one marina. Like,
oh, you guys were telling me about that.
Yeah, that
was wild.
She just
So she called me so I had to leave. I was like, I'm sorry, I had to leave. So we dealt with that. The next day, I was still knocking in the same area. I was like, I have to go check back how the service went with this one customer that I didn't really finish to actually get to know whatever.
So you'd already sold them. You just didn't. Usually, you take time to build rapport with that person after.
I usually just like. Just get
connect with them.
Yeah, just connect with them. So I went back and I went back to connect with the customer, and it was great. The customer just kept on talking, and I was looking down. I think I had like 5 sales, and it was around like power hour. I was like, oh, I gotta go. I was just super patient with that customer. I was just listening in. Then and it just like started feeling dizzy. I was standing up. I just started feeling dizzy.
You're like forgetting to eat.
And I'm like what's going on? And my vision started turning purple, and I was just an hour later with that customer. I was like, hey, I have to go. Like, my ride is actually here, around the corner. I had to go, and it was around like 7 p.m. I didn't really need to go anywhere, but get back to the doors. Then I hopped back on my Segway. I was just riding towards my car,
Bro, that's
my
scary.
vision-
So I got
vision
on
is
my
just
Segway.
dark.
It just goes. You're like, oh yeah.
I couldn't see anything, and boom, I passed out. That's where like my face got kicked in. I passed out, and I got back up in like 20 seconds. Was segwaying in my car, passed out again for the second time. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even get to my car. Like what's happening? And I got to my car. I passed out in my car again for the third time, and I called David. And I'm like, dude, like, oh my gosh, bro, like, I just been forgetting like just to eat. I was just
You're
been,
like, David, can you bring me some salt?
I didn't even ask anything about David.
I found Johnny 3 hours later.
I didn't even ask anything
in a
of-
gutter.
Anything of David. I was just ranting. I was just venting to him. I was like, dude, I need to eat, dude. I just got so like fixated in like competing and like winning. I just forget the small things of like eating and just like having an adequate sleep schedule. And it's just awesome. After that, I like got back to like to a routine, and that just like put everything back into place. But yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, dude, that's I mean, that's part of what Cubby says, like the PPC balance, and with sharpening the saw, it's like it's hard to give all of yourself to people if you don't have all of yourself available.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't all there, but it also says you can still perform at a high level, but like you can still perform at that high level, but you have to make sure to always have a morning routine. Always make sure it's like your body it can perform to that ability. It can seem like you are like I was still selling really well, but I just neglected like myself.
Yeah.
And I just got back to that.
That's how I've always felt too. Is like when I was, for like 4 years straight, I slept for like max 4 hours a night, just like working every waking minute of the day.
Yeah.
And my family and some close friends always used to say like, Hayden, you should really take care of yourself. Like you should like make sure you're getting enough sleeping in. And like that's a very valid thing to say, right?
Yeah.
But my opinion has always been like, it's much easier to scale back your determination to win, to take care of yourself, than it is to use things like taking care of yourself as a front for like your own mediocrity, basically. It's much easier to like get good at like right now I'm really trying to get better at like sleeping more, because my tendency is just like stay up and keep working, and like I'd rather be awake than sleeping because I just like love it so much, But it's much easier to figure out how to scale that back than it is to just suck so bad that like you don't ever want to even do the work. So I mean, I think that's at the end of the day, I would take someone it's like on the door. Like, I would take someone who's willing to push someone to the absolute edge of like rapport and not like burn bridges and like get really pushy. I'd take that guy over the person that's not willing to do that. Because the person that's willing to go be really pushy on the doors is the one that's probably going to achieve their goals. And I can teach that person how to finesse a sale any day. But the person who's not willing to go to the absolute ends of the earth to achieve their goals, there's just not a ton of hope.
Yeah.
So
just got to teach them how to do it a healthy way.
Yeah, exactly. But you scale, then you learn, but from like those types of things, you're like, oh, maybe I should eat before I go out to area today. But then you also learn that like, oh, I really want to win. And so I was just caught up in like, forgetting to do these important things. But like maybe right now I need to realize that winning long term is going to mean taking care of myself long term.
Yeah. You just get blinded and you're stating a definite purpose. You're like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice everything.
Whatever it takes.
So you just get blinded on that. And like you get fixated on that. And when you start going through that, you're like, okay, like this is what it actually takes. But no, you could prevent that. You can like be smart about that. And do it the smart way by eating. It's still you're still paying a price, but like there's always a smart and healthy way to do that, and that's when I learned a hard lesson.
Let's go.
By actually,
I turned the mic back on for that because you were talking like with some certainty there, so I thought that was fun.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
I see.
Too easy. I can do this with my eyes closed. It's too easy.